So now we're going to be taking a look at, is this a zombie? I don't know, you tell me if it's a zombie or not. Yeah, the name of this one is pretty damn weird. But it's not as weird as this other anime I've heard about called, Is It Okay to Pick Up Chicks in a Dungeon? It's something like that. I think it's actually longer, but I can't really remember. Then again, I know like pretty much nothing about that show, other than the ridiculous name. So anyways, yeah, let's go take a look at, is this a zombie? So it begins with a character named Ayamu. And he seems like an average student, although this time, he actually doesn't like the sun, and the reason why he doesn't like the sun is that he's a zombie. But he doesn't really look like one, or even act like one at all. Well, at least he doesn't act like a stereotypical zombie anyway. But how he became a zombie was that he was actually murdered on his way home one day. But then he got resurrected by a necromancer named, okay, wait for it, Elucia Wood Hellscythe. Yeah, that's a really tongue-tying name, so just for short, I just like to call her Lady Hellscythe. And she's a necromancer from the underworld, but who looks pretty innocent enough, except for the fact that she has like big armor on. But she takes the quiet character out at a whole new level because she barely ever talks. But she communicates with everyone just by writing everything down. Now there is a reason why she can't talk, and yeah, I'll go ahead and explain it, it's not that big of a spoiler. So the reason why she can't talk, or at least she can't talk much, is that shit gets fucked up if she does. Just for an example, when she yelled out die to someone, they pretty much blew the fuck up. Now that gets me curious. I wonder what would happen if you got her to say fuck you really loud. Would it be like a next level spirit bomb? Anyways, with all ridiculous aside, let's get moving on. So after being resurrected by her, he ends up actually taking her in. So now they pretty much live together in the same house. Yeah, this is definitely one of those animes where, you know, it's about a guy who lives on his own without any parents and lives with a bunch of chicks. So whenever Aimu goes to a walk, he always ends up going to a graveyard. And he happens to meet someone there, and her name happened to be Haruna. And she is a magical girl, but wields a chainsaw, which is pretty damn ridiculous. So what ends up happening is that they get into a fight, and then he accidentally takes her powers away. So now she's not considered as a magical girl wielding chainsaw maniac. So now Ayamu is the one that has her powers, and yes, that's right, he actually wears a frilly dress. It's fucked up as hell, but whatever, at least it's fucking hilarious. So because she doesn't have any powers anymore, she has no way to return back to her homeland, so she ends up having to live with him. And then the final person that ends up living with them is named Seraphim. And all you need to know about her is that she is a vampire ninja and that she announces it like every damn time. Now the only reason why she ends up living there is because she wants to protect Lady Hellscythe, because they're quite familiar with each other. Now one thing I find to be really weird is that she's a vampire ninja, but yet she can stay out in the sunlight no matter how long, but the zombie can't? I don't know, I'm really starting to think that the more shows I watch like this, the less sense it makes. So now you're probably wondering, what's the whole point of this show? Well, there's two things that are going on. There's one, the fact that Ayamu is trying to figure out who killed him, and secondly, there's a bunch of megalos running around. Now, in case you're wondering what a megalo is, it's basically a deformed animal, but has a business suit on. And they just wreak havoc in the city. I know there's like a lobster, there's a giant whale, then there's even a dog, although he doesn't try to kill them. And there's even a horse. And there's plenty of others, but I won't get into that, so yeah, there's a bunch of monsters running around wearing business suits. So yeah, I think that covers most of what you need to know about this one, and honestly, the show is very, bizarre. So it's a very simple plot, but it's kinda all over the place. But if it sticks to one thing, it probably has to stick with the fact that it's just balls to the wall crazy. Now as for the characters, they may not be like the best thing ever, but they definitely are just mindless fun. So in other words, they're just really funny. And I gotta say, at least they are memorable. Then again, it's not very often that you see an anime about a guy that turns into a zombie with some necromancer that wears badass armor. And just for good measure, you just have to have a magical girl wielding chainsaw with a vampire ninja on the side. I mean, how could you not have that? So because it's just so random, it just happens to be very memorable like that. But as for the story overall, well, it's not a great story, but it isn't bad either. It's just mostly just stupid fun. But there's nothing wrong with that every once in a while, so it's okay. I mean, this isn't as over the top as something like Bobobo, but then again, I don't think anything will ever be as over the top as that. But I also should say that this is probably one of those animes where you shouldn't take it too seriously. Because, like I said, nothing in the show makes sense, but it's at least good fun. So now let's take a look at the other things, like the animation. So the animation here does look pretty good. There's not a lot I can really complain about. I mean, the background's fine, the setting is alright. But I do like a lot of the character designs, mostly Lady Hellscythe is definitely a favorite of mine. But other than that, everything else just looks fine the way it is, so I really can't complain much. But now, as for the music, I think the music is okay. It's not really great, but it's not really bad either. It's just not very memorable. So there's not a lot I can say about the music, but it's just kind of whatever. It just does the thing that it does. But one good thing I have to say is that the opening theme song is fucking awesome. So what I really like about the opening theme song is mostly because it's catchy, it's fast paced, it gets stuck in my head all the time, and I find it has a really big epic feel to it. So personally, I just really love the opening theme song. I would actually consider it to be one of my many favorites that are out there. So it's pretty awesome. Now as for the voice acting, it's not too bad actually. So Ayamu is being played by Austin Tyndall. Now I'm not very familiar with his roles, but I have to say, he does do a pretty good job here. I find the way how he's all like sarcastic and shit is just hilarious. Now as for Lady Hellscythe, she is being played by Caramy Lay. And she's actually a really good voice actor, and as for here, well, she barely ever talks, so it's kinda hard to tell, but from the very rare times I actually do hear her speak, it actually does sound fine, so I don't have any complaints. And then Haruna is being played by Jade Saxton. She's another voice actor I'm not too familiar with, but from what I have heard of her, she's actually not bad, and as for her here, she does do a pretty decent job. And then as for Seraphim, she's being played by Morgan Garrett. Yeah, as again, I'm not too familiar with her here, but she actually does do a pretty decent job as well. So that takes up the main cast, but as for the other ones, you actually do get some pretty decent ones. Like you got Brittany Kabowski, Caitlin Glass, Monica Ryle, Eric Vale, Lindsay Seedall, and even Todd Haberkorn, so that's pretty cool. So overall, I have to say that the voice acting is pretty decent, but it does have some good moments. But probably the best would have to be Ayamu's voice, just because he's just fucking hilarious with his sarcasticness. Also, the part where he's trying to breakdance in front of Lady Hellscythe is just too fucking funny. So now, as for the overall score, I'm gonna be a bit generous in this one and give it a 7 out of 10. Now, I'll be honest here, this show is pretty dumb as fuck, but it's at least funny as hell. And like I said before, I don't think this is the kind of anime you should take too seriously. Now yeah, the story in it is not that ridiculous. Okay, maybe the whole thing with the Megalos is a bit silly, but as for like the solving the murder thing, I guess that's the only part in this entire show that's trying to be serious, but even then, they still know how to way to make it funny. But it is mostly over the top. So personally, I found this one was pretty fun and funny, as long as you don't think about it too much. So this one is kind of hard to recommend people to watch unless, you know, this actually does sound interesting to you, but if not, well, hey, that's okay. It really is just a bizarre show with a lot of crazy shit happening. So there's not a lot else I can say other than that, if you like a lot of ridiculous shit, and personally I prefer this one over My Bride's a Mermaid, well, I can definitely recommend this one to you. But if you're trying to look for something serious, then yeah, you can skip over this one. Now there is one thing I should say before I end this review that happens to be there is another season, but it has a different name called Is This a Zombie of the Dead? I take it they're trying to go for like Night of the Living Dead? Well, probably not. I mean, I haven't seen it, so I can't say much on that. But any last words I do have to say about this one is that it's fun, but definitely dumb. Shh, shut up.